Hi everyone and welcome back to the Learning Gardener. Today we're going to be working down the side of my house and as you can see the dogs are yelling at the fence at each other between the neighbor's house and my house, and that's why we're going with an audio overlay today because they did not stop for long. The weeds in this area have gotten out of control and the wandering tradescantia, which is what I'm pulling out now, has gotten particularly bad with the rains. They were under control and then all of a sudden we had a week of rain and poof, they're off like a rocket. And I cannot get them all out, so I just pulled out what I could of the weeds, and I'm going to come through here on our next sunny day and hit it all with the vinegar spray and hopefully kill most of it. I might need to come and hit the roots of the wandering tradescantia with some boiling water to actually get them to die back, but it already looks loads better just being weeded a little bit. Now we're going to be working on these side gardens because I hate this colorbond fence with a violent fiery passion, and I want to make sure that we have something to cover it. So we're using the nahema climbing rose, which is a rose you might have seen on the archways in the main part of the veggie garden. I put these roses in maybe about 6 weeks ago at most, and you can see they've already put on a ton of growth. They were only about a foot tall when I put them in, and we've already got some long, beautiful canes that I need to connect to the wire that's going to help them and support them up the trellis. For a long time, I've debated what I'm going to put in this area, and hopefully this will be the last thing that I try. The first thing I tried was some more of my pittosporum trees, or pittosporums, depending on how you want to say it, but they grew too wide too quickly and took over way too much of the narrow pathway. I don't actually know what I was thinking putting them in there other than desperately trying to cover the colorbond and put some privacy in before I had curtains. But hopefully these will grow up and cover quite a lot of the colorbond. The nahema climbing rose has been very, very prolific grower for us. And underneath I'm putting plants like these hellebores. These are hellebores I've now had in these pots sitting completely neglected for about 4 years. So the first thing was to rip out all the weeds and associated mess that has accumulated in these pots. And I found these hellebores to be ridiculously resilient. I have at times left them in the blazing sun for weeks at a time and they've been fine. To be fair, it was winter. And I have not watered them in summer for weeks and they have lived on. So I'm pretty impressed with them. I can't actually remember what type or color they are because it's been so long since I paid any attention at all to these pots. But I want to try and fit as many of them as I can down underneath the roses. So the roses are going to cast a fair bit of shade, and this is an area where in winter it gets a lot of shade. So that should be okay for the roses, both because the canes will have grown up the fence, but also because the roses to some degree go dormant. And I say to some degree because the roses on the archway didn't go fully dormant last winter. They still popped out the occasional bloom, so hopefully these will be happy here. So far they've been very happy and they've put on a lot of growth. And the nahema climbing rose has put on a ton of thick growth, so I'm hoping that I can train this rose up to cover the hideous colorbond and then up above to provide a little bit of privacy. It's quite a narrow pathway and it does need to have plants that can tolerate a lot of moisture. When it rains, the rain buckets down the driveway and gushes down the side of the house and travels really quickly down here. So it's a hard area for plants that don't like clay and don't like wet soil. But the roses so far in the garden have been unreal. They've been so happy. So I'm hoping that these ones will also be happy here, although our sun position has started to change as we get to the end of summer and they are getting less and less sun. So I don't know if I'm planting up this area way too late to get to see the benefits of my effort. I intended on doing this weeks ago, but it's just been way too hot. So what I've got here is a beautiful heuchera that has these beautiful light green leaves with pink flowers when it blooms. I would love to get more of them, but I haven't been able to find them. So I think I'm going to have to grow them from cuttings, which I have done with heuchera before, but I do find they're a little bit hit and miss. And I'm planting just that one heuchera there, and then all the rest are the hellebores to go alongside. And I do have two long-suffering red hellebores that I'm also putting in along here that I bought in probably early in spring, and I've been limping along in pots intending on potting, and I just haven't, and they've been bashed by the dogs in their argument through the fence with the next door neighbour's dog about 1,000 times. I left them out in the sun, they dried out 1,000 times, and still they're limping on. To be fair, at the moment they are mostly leafless, but they'll come back. They're so tough, these hellebores. I'm so impressed. But I just started by digging a little bit of a hole, adding some blood and bone fertilizer and some slow release fertilizer. Currently my budget pretty much extends to getting my plants by starting from seed. So I was actually thinking about this project some weeks ago when I was sowing some seeds, and I started sowing things perhaps a little bit early for this time of year that I want to try and grow along here. One of the main things that I sowed in order to get ready for this project was sweet peas. So I thought, what can I grow up these little trellises that my dad has very kindly anchored to the fence in order to hide the hideous fence as fast as possible while I wait for the roses to fill in. And sweet peas came to mind. Every year I've wanted to have a ton of sweet peas, but every year the bandicoots knock off the seeds, and I've always planted them, I think perhaps slightly poorly timed, and haven't prioritized them, and so I've missed the window for the sweet peas usually. So I'm trying to get in early, perhaps to the sweet peas peril, but I sowed a whole bunch of sweet peas for this area. So once I had all the hellebores in, then I back planted behind the hellebores with two different types of sweet pea. So we had a kind of purpley pink sweet pea called the Madakana sweet pea, which is a type I've never grown before. And I'm really hoping that I can get a lot of blooms from these and hopefully try putting them in the silica drying crystals and maybe try using them in epoxy resin for some lovely creations. But because I'm not sure whether these sweet peas are going to actually thrive with the amount of sun they get as we move closer and closer to winter, I just thought I'm just going to jam them in for maximum impact. I didn't bother dividing any of the seedlings, and I just popped them in. We also put in some tall purple globe amaranth and some strawberry fields amaranth as we went along. So hopefully we have just enough summer left with 2 more weeks to go and just enough heat to actually let these plants produce some beautiful blooms. It'll be nice for them to support our pollinators as we move into the cooler season, but it'll just be nice to hopefully get an idea of what this area could be like come spring. This week we have got borderline winter temperatures, which is a bit worrying. I mean, it's a lovely reprieve because all I've done on this channel is complain about the weather, but I am a little bit concerned that it's going to be like last year, which we had a very early switch over to winter, and we really only had one piping hot week of autumn, and then the rest was a cold winter, and it was a long winter, and that led to the fruit trees blossoming too early and then not producing any fruit because it stayed cold for too long and the pollinators weren't out and about. So I'm hopeful that after this cool change we might get some warmer weather again, and also that the ColourBond fence will create a little bit of radiant heat off it that will help the plants get going a little bit more, because once they get a little way up the trellis they're actually going to be able to catch more sunlight hours through the day. It's just while they're at ground level it's going to be harder for them, which is why I've chosen plants like heucheras and hellebores to plant along the ground level. I would love to plant some more brunnera. I really love brunnera, but as I said, my budget currently extends to things I can grow from seed. Overall, I'm really happy with the way this area looks. I'm happy with the way it's come together. At the moment, it's looking great. All I need to do is focus on keeping it weed free. On the other side, I have a combination of statice that are well and truly burnt out for the season, and some English lavender that never really got going because they were swamped by the statice. The statice has been unbelievably productive, and it's in its second season, and I reckon it's going to hang around and bloom again in autumn because it was putting on some new blooms before I hacked it back. Last season I also had Russian statice in here, which was absolutely gorgeous, but I haven't been able to get the seeds going again this year, and I just needed a bit of a clean out. I've recently remulched this area with a horribly named mulch called Who Flung Dung that works really well with hydrophobic soil. It's basically like chicken poop and everything you scratch out of a chicken coop, and wood chips and stuff like that. It's a lot of organic material, so it really helps the soil kind of heal and suck up the moisture, and it provides some fertilizer as well. So I decided to stick in some purple echinaceas just dotted along the line. What I'm looking for in this area is not necessarily plants that will become particularly huge. Obviously you want to keep some plant matter away from your brickwork to discourage critters like white ants from crawling up into the weep holes. So if it turns out that these particular echinacea turn into big beasts, then they'll just get relocated, which is fine. But in terms of just adding some color, I think it'll be nice to kind of give that cottage garden vibe. So we have the purple echinacea, which we put in along here. I put in some more Strawberry Fields Globe Amaranth and mixed it in as well. And I did leave the statice and the lavender, even though the lavender's looking a little bit rough. There's also a Aquilegia or columbine plant that I love and have spread its seed all through here, so hopefully we'll get a little bit more. And we put some Stock Cat's apricot, which is the first time I've ever grown this plant, and I'm really hoping for some beautiful apricot blooms. Just beside this garden bed is a little concrete platform that used to have a air conditioning unit on it that I removed and sold when I moved in, when the roof collapsed in when they were doing some building work, and we put in central air conditioning. So I thought this is a good place for a nice heavy pot. I didn't want to put like your standard pot plants up here because we get a lot of wind rolling down this area and puppies hunting for lizards, and they would be so easily knocked off. I thought a lower, heavier pot full of soil would do the trick here. It's not the world's best draining container, but it'll do. So what I wanted to do with this one is focus on the color scheme that I've become obsessed with this season. Last season I was all about purple and yellow and pink, And this season, the colors that I've loved are the purples and the salmons and the corals. So we've got an Oklahoma salmon zinnia going in here, alternating with a purple Prince zinnia. So these are the seedlings I sowed maybe 6 weeks ago in anticipation of this project, because I didn't just want to be showing you guys me sowing seedlings into this pot. I wanted to actually have some plants to put in, and I'm glad I did that because they took off like a rocket, and it took me so long to get ready to actually do this project due to the hideous weather. And it's all coming together really nicely. Now this area will get quite a bit more sunshine through winter, so hopefully these plants, even if the other ones don't get enough to kick off the sweet peas, this area should get plenty to keep the plants happy through early autumn, and hopefully we will get a range of beautiful blooms through here. I just think this color is totally to die for on the Oklahoma salmon zinnia, and I hope to plant a lot more of these next year. And just even cleaning up this area and planting a few things now, even if they don't work out, has given me a lot of ideas for things I want to try in spring, which will mean getting ready early with the seedlings. So hopefully there's a lot of great things to come for this area, and I really appreciate you guys hanging out with us and watching as the garden changes and sharing your suggestions with us in the comments. It's been really great to see everyone getting involved. So thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one.